Welcome, new and old friends. My name is 242, and today, 2 got us 5 Am I the Asshole stories. Remember, if you would like to listen to the audio only, I have a podcast called Daydreams and Nightmares with 242. If you want to watch the video of this, I have a YouTube channel, 242 Reads. All the links are in the tree link down below. Now, grab yourself a tea or coffee. Things are about to get interesting. Am I the asshole for refusing to pay my uncle's rent to stay in a cabin owned by the whole family? By Anonymous. My 92-year-old grandfather has a cabin in the mountains that is owned and trust equally between my mother and her 3 brothers. It remains empty about 11 months of the year, but is available for any family to go visit if they want, like during summer vacation, for example. All 4 siblings split the costs of the house, including property taxes, insurance, and maintenance. There is no mortgage. One uncle, who I will call Uncle Stingy, has taken on the role of caretaker since he uses the cabin the most. He goes up a week in spring and a week in fall, and he rents it out to his friends and pockets the money, and takes care of any regular caretaking that needs to be done. Due to the owner of the home that I've been renting for 11 years decided to sell it, I find myself without a home, and I decided to take this opportunity to inject some change into my life. I recognize that I have tremendous privilege to have access to an empty home during this time, and I decided to go stay there for the summer while I work on a novel. I checked in with Uncle Stingy, and he said he'd be up there until June 2nd, so I told him I'd come in that night. I told him to let me know what the utilities costs were while I was up there, and I'd be happy to pay for those, as well as any percentage of the maintenance or anything relevant while I was there. He said okay, and I began to plan my trip. Out of the blue, I got a call from him, and he says he realizes I want to stay a bit longer than he expected. A month is fine. You gotta get back on your feet. But any longer than that, I could be charging $130 a night for this as an Airbnb. You have to pay someone to manage it locally in that case too, I said. None of my family is local to the cabin, the closest being 8 hours away. And if you have someone who wants to rent it while I'm up here, just let me know. I'll leave for that period and come back when they're gone. I'm just saying that the house could be getting $3,000 a month in rent fees. So nobody should be living up there free, enjoying this beautiful cabin in the mountains. He ended the conversation with telling me that if I wanted to stay longer than a month, he'd have to charge me. I just ignored him and hung up. I'm planning to stay up there and occasionally in the empty home for 1 to 2 months. If he tries to insist I pay him anything beyond the cost of the normal bills and maintenance, I'll just ignore him. My mother, and directly me as her son, have equal rights and access to this cabin. Am I the asshole for refusing to pay my uncle to rent a cabin he doesn't own or have the right to charge rent? Edit to add. My mother suggested I stay there initially. She is also very ill, so I have been trying to do this without bothering her. Additionally, the rule for the last 15 years for the cabin has been any family can stay there for as long as they want. It's open to everyone. Cousins and kids and grandkids have all just announced they're going up to the cabin. It's not and has never been an ask permission type of situation. Am I the butthole for complaining to my supervisor about my coworkers farting? By Artist Pink Lemonade. Okay, so for some background context, I work in a hospital as a housekeeper. I'm the one that goes into the room once a patient has been discharged and clean it for the next patient. My coworker, who I'll refer to as A, doesn't work in the same department. I can't tell you off the top of my head what the exact name of the department is, but it's something along the lines of nutrition. They go into the room, take down what the patient wants for their meal, and deliver it, etc. So I'll be cleaning a room, minding my own business, doing my job, when A out of nowhere will walk into a room I'm cleaning. Sometimes it won't even be on the floor they're scheduled on. I was confused about how they kept finding me when it turns out they were locating me on the communication devices that the hospital staff uses. The housekeeping staff isn't allowed access to this feature on the device, as we are normally working solo, and if we need someone, we can just call. It feels kind of violating to be just randomly located by someone I barely know. When A would then find where I was, they would come into the room to talk to me, which I wouldn't normally mind, but they would sit on or touch surfaces I had just cleaned. And on top of them doing that, they would fart in the room. They weren't the silent, non-smelly ones either. They were the loud and stinky ones, and A would just laugh and say sorry. I soon found out A was doing this to 2 other coworkers of mine, and all 3 of us are uncomfortable with this behavior. Like I mentioned before, we really wouldn't care if A only came in to talk to us for a second, but they don't. It's gotten to the point where I had to talk to one of my supervisors because they just won't stop. I know I skipped the step of asking A to stop and instead jumped to my supervisor, and I feel bad for it. Just blame it on me being non-confrontational. Our supervisor ended up going to our department manager, who ended up speaking to A's department manager. Ever since then, A seems like they've been ignoring me, but I still see them talking to other coworkers who are not the other 2 I mentioned before, and acts rather passive-aggressive when I'm around. My goal was never to get A in trouble. I only want the behavior to stop. I'm not sure if A knows it was me who reported it in, but I still feel bad. Am I the asshole for complaining about my coworkers farting? Am I the asshole for insisting a grandmother be banned from picking up her grandchild? By Daycare Worker 1987. Okay, obligatory disclaimer. English isn't my native language, and I'm using a throwaway account. I leave the gender of the child undecided for privacy reasons. Sorry it's so long. I, female 33, work at a daycare. I've worked here for a long time, and I work with 3 to 4-year-old age group. Recently, we've had a new kid, 3, at our daycare center. The parents decided the kid needs some more social skills before going to school, so the kid never went to daycare before. The kid is a joy to work with. Parents are happy since the kid is making friends and enjoying coming here. No problems here. The grandmother, GM, is another issue. She picks up the kid 2 out of 3 days. She has complained about many issues in the range of some sand on the pants. Grandmother complains very consistently. She calls us belittling names, berates us, accuses us of child endangerment, and has raised her voice on some occasion. This is also very disruptive to the group of kids and other parents picking up their kids. Crying, upset kids is pretty normal, which is then our fault according to her. Management has talked to her about this a few times. Parents also talk to her about it, to no avail. She apologizes but continues. A couple of weeks ago, grandmother made my intern, female, 19, cry. I was coming back from the change room and told her that she knew the behavior was unacceptable and she should be ashamed for making a young woman cry as well as many kids. I asked her to just leave with her grandchild, which she did. My intern was so upset, I sent her home early and she took the next day off. She was debating graduating or working in this field. The next day I went to my manager. I was told that they were already informed by another parent who witnessed the event, another coworker, and the grandmother. The grandmother had made an official complaint against me because I had yelled at her. My manager had already shredded the complaint. My manager talked with the parents of the kid and my coworkers and wanted to give another warning, but I insisted on a ban and refusing work otherwise. The ban was granted. The parents now pick up the child. They work in fields that make late hours, which is why the grandmother picked up and babysit the kid. They have to leave work early to pick up the kid before closing time. Yesterday, the dad apparently said to my coworker that it was very inconvenient and he couldn't keep doing this, he might lose his job. Which is starting to make me feel like I'm the asshole for insisting on a ban. Parents are lovely people who don't deserve this. So, was I wrong, and should I let the ban be lifted as the manager is hinting at? Information. Lots of people suggest sabotage from the grandma to babysit herself again. This is also the assumption that me and my coworkers have made. This has been discussed with the parents with meh results. They agree that the issue she has are BS and don't make this behavior acceptable. The parents have also admitted that the grandma didn't agree with sending the kid to daycare. They didn't want to believe she would stoop so far, though. Perhaps now they will. Multiple conversations have been held about the behavior we're banning, permanent and temporary, have been mentioned as things that might happen, after which we offer our apologies. After so many conversations, though, I think the grandmother didn't think it would actually happen. It probably wouldn't have if I hadn't dug my heels in. Alternatives were the grandmother would stay outside and the child would be brought to her, haven't worked in the past. We had done that for a while due to the pandemic, and she would just yell and scream outside at you or call. This would be easier to deal with since you can hang up and just walk away. But honestly, I'm done with her BS. Am I the asshole for getting annoyed with my girlfriend for recommending I make crepes instead of pancakes? By Immortal Fox. I, 21 male, am relatively good at cooking, while my girlfriend, 20 female, is not. Largely relying on things like macaroni, instant noodles, and other variety of instant food. Tonight, we went to the store because I realized instead of eating takeout again, I could make myself pancakes and save a couple bucks. So I brought my girlfriend along with me, and while discussing the plan with her, she chimes in with, "Ooh, can you make crepes?" To which I reply with, "No, that's harder and I don't want to deal with that." Keep in mind, it's 10 p.m. at this point and I just want to make food so I'm not starving in the morning. She goes on to tell me, "They're not that hard, you just add extra milk and I cut her off and told her that she could make them then. She got quiet about it and we made our purchase and got on our way. It's worth noting at this point that she had already eaten dinner at her place with her family, so I was cooking for myself, not for us. Later, after finishing making pancakes in the pancake maker I got a while back, I sat down and while we were talking, had called them waffles and corrected myself before saying something along the lines of, pancakes, waffles, same thing. To which she jumped in and was like, "Crepes." I replied with, "I don't want to hear the word crepes out of you again. You've got a 1-month ban on the word crepes." This was a joke. Half jokingly, but there was a bit of seriousness in it. There was a bit of back and forth, but I ultimately summed it up that it seemed rude to me that she would immediately try and change the food that I was making for myself to something she wanted despite already eating. and told her it was like if I had said I wanted sushi and she asked me to make sashimi instead. Yes, I know those aren't necessarily equivalent, but the point stands. She got up and left, and when I went back to talk to her, she started crying, saying that I was rude for calling her out about constantly mentioning crepes, but I feel like her trying to change the meal I was making for myself to better suit her wants was way out of line. Edit. I went down and we discussed what had happened and why things played out the way that they did. She apologized for coming across as pushy, and I apologized for being a douche nozzle. And then we danced for a bit and went to bed. Am I the butthole for not wanting to sign over my rights? By Signed Rights. Look, I know it's my choice and I have the right to say no, but right now it feels like the rest of the world doesn't agree. Honestly, I, 26 male, didn't know this woman that well when we first met through a dating site. She was 35 and according to her profile was single. Never told me she was married. We went on a few dates for 4 months until she told me she wasn't interested anymore. I later found out it was because her husband was getting suspicious and she needed to cut her losses. But a few months after, she contacted me again and told me she was pregnant. It hadn't been that long since we slept together, and she confessed everything. Her husband still didn't know yet because she wanted to find out who the father was first. We did a prenatal parenting test and confirmed her baby is also mine. She had to tell him after that, and it was a shit show. He wanted to speak to me and called me like crazy. She got him to leave me alone after telling him I never knew about her being married. We were both lied to by her. They're apparently trying to work things out, but here's the thing. Her husband wants me completely out of the picture and is willing to adopt my baby if I terminate my parental rights. He doesn't want me in their lives at all, and this is his only condition, or he's divorcing her and taking their 2 kids. Don't know if he can actually do that, but she's begging me to do this, or I'll completely break their family. Neither of them are considering that this is my child too, and I want to be in my child's life. I said I would not, and it caused all these problems. She's called several times telling me how badly this is her and her family, and her kids are hurt and confused because her husband temporarily moved out until this condition is met. She feels guilty for doing this to them, but she says she wants to fix her mistake and make their marriage work if I could just do this. Plus, to her, it's a sweet deal for me since I won't even have to raise this baby or be responsible financially. I don't see it that way. I want to be a dad to my son, but it feels like what I want is hurting everyone else, like her kids. My close friends who know all of this get I want to do the right thing by my kid, but feel I should walk away from this messy situation as it'll always be part of my life if I choose to be involved. And it's possible if her husband is willing to adopt my son after birth, he'll have a good life. Nobody else in my life thinks me being in my son's life is a good idea, and I don't know if it really is such a bad thing. She is due in 2 months and I don't know what to do. Am I the asshole? So that was posted 7 months ago, and we have an update that was posted 2 months ago, so we'll go to that. It's been a while since I posted this, and a lot has happened since then. And by a lot, I mean I finally became a dad. My son is healthy and beautiful, most beautiful baby I've ever seen. One of the best things to ever happen to me, honestly, despite the drama. Thank you everyone who was helpful and encouraged me in this situation. It felt good to know, even with what everyone else was saying, I had a right to say no to my ex's demand, and I'm not the one at fault for what happened. Several of you had suggested I talk to her about switching it around so that I could ask about getting full custody instead of being cut out if her husband had such a problem with me being around. Was a great idea, and I feel pretty stupid for not thinking about it myself. So, here's what happened. I decided to try again and contact her husband because throughout this whole time, he's refusing to speak to me. But I just wanted to see if I could get through to him as a last resort. He agreed for us to talk, and I was shocked to find out he had actually changed his mind about accepting the baby 2 months ago, before I made the post. Originally, he did have that condition that he only take her back and adopt my son if I wasn't in the picture, but decided he didn't want to raise another man's baby. So, she lied to me about him still having this condition, and this was just her attempt to try to fix everything even though he was planning on going through with a divorce. He was pretty mad about what she was doing too, so he was kinda on my side about it. Did get a lawyer involved and had another talk with her as well after he spoke to her, pretty much saying he'd never take her back no matter what she did at this point. That got her to see trying to keep me out wasn't going to do anything. I brought up the full custody thing to see if that was something she wanted, and she agreed. To her, there's no point in having my son full-time with this whole divorce going on, and she doesn't even have her own place. He moved back into their house with kids, and she ended up leaving. Going through with my attorney, I was able to establish parentality after my son was born so that I'd legally be recognized as his father instead of her soon-to-be ex. As of right now, he's with me full-time, but she still comes by to visit. Her life is a total mess right now with the divorce, and she's still pretty bitter towards me about it. It's not perfect. I'm just happy having my son in my life. Holding him for the first time, it made all the struggle worth it. It's definitely overwhelming doing it mostly on my own, but I don't regret how things played out. So, thanks for the support and advice. It really helped make a difference when I couldn't see a way out of this without feeling like I was doing something wrong. Let's go with my opinions before we wrap this up. The first one I want to talk about is the uncle who wanted rent. First of all, I don't think OP is an asshole here. The uncle does not own this place, the mother pays her share, and OP will leave if he needs the place in any way. Also, he wants to pay for the extra cost as well. So no, the uncle just wants money, and he can't rent out to an Airbnb because there's no one around to clean it. It seems like his uncle's pretty greedy and is taking advantage of a bit of a situation here. I hope everything goes okay for you, OP, and I really hope your uncle just leaves you the heck alone. Now let's talk about the one with the coworker who was farting. Really, OP should have talked to him first, but I get not wanting to. It gave me the feeling like a child who ran into their sister's room and farted in it as a bad joke. Also, sitting on things you have cleaned and touched them, so now you have to double your work? Terrible. Just all around, this whole thing sounds odd to me, and I don't think he would have stopped. Also, a little stalkery, since he was using a device to find out where you three were. It just kind of screamed something odd, and I think you might have bit something in the bud. Now, about the one with the daycare, the grandmother was warned many times to stop and didn't. What else are you guys able to do but ban her? You're not the asshole here, she is. In theory, she wants to take the grandkid and babysit them permanently, but her kids would like her grandkid to be in daycare to get a little more social, I get that. She needs to respect her child's wishes here. You, in theory, could lift the ban and warn them if this doesn't change, you're going to ban her again and it won't be lifted this time. I do feel bad for the parents, but you have tried everything to accommodate this. So really, what else are you supposed to do but ban the one that's causing problems? You've tried everything else. And I really hope that trainee is okay as well, and this doesn't put a sour taste in their mouth to never want to do this. So let's do the crepe story next. He was a jerk, not an asshole here. I think he overreacted and they were both trying to make a joke and it didn't work out. She had eaten already and tried to turn pancakes to crepes. Crepes are hard. He had a pancake maker, so that makes it super easy, and it also looks like they didn't make up and he realized that he was a little out of line on this. This one's a hard one because yes, technically he is a bit of an asshole, a bit of a jerk here, but not in the grand scheme of things. He just overreacted and just a joke went wrong, I think. Lastly, we're going to talk about the one with the rights with the baby. First of all, you're not an asshole. You didn't know she was married, you didn't try to get her pregnant, and in the end, you have all rights to your baby. It's not your fault that she was lying to you and him, and you just happened to get her pregnant. You have the rights to this child because you know it's yours. You don't have to give them up. And in the end, because you were fighting tooth and nail not to have to give him up, you got to keep your baby, and I think in the end, it was the best situation that could have happened. She is now having to have a divorce. He didn't want the baby in the end. Now the baby has someone that really wants them and will love them. It will make your life much more difficult, of course. In the end, I think this is the best situation for everyone involved. If you don't agree with what I think, tell me down below. I love to hear what you think. Now, if you enjoyed these stories, hit that like button and make sure it feels it. If you want to become an old friend, then subscribe and turn that pretty little bell to all notifications. If you'd like to get early access and a few other things, check out my Patreon. And if you want something with my cute little avatars on it, check out my merch. I also wanted to mention that I now have an Instagram, so go check it out if you can. But, as always, thank you for watching. That means the world to me. I hope you have a good day.